Goro's blood stained the ancient stones, another warrior fallen in a tournament that no longer existed. The Shao Kahn prince's final choice, redemption over conquest, had cost him everything. But it had also given Ghost Rider something invaluable: time. Shao Kahn swung his war hammer in a devastating arc, but Ghost Rider was no longer where the blow would land. The demon moved with supernatural speed, chains lashing out to wrap around the Emperor's weapon. Hellfire raced along the metal, but Shao Kahn merely laughed. His enchanted armor and millennia of conquest made him resistant to most supernatural attacks. "You think your fire burns me, demon?" The Emperor yanked his hammer free with brutal strength, spinning it to build momentum. "I have bathed in the flames of conquered worlds. I have drunk the blood of fire gods. Your parlor tricks mean nothing." The hammer descended again, and this time Ghost Rider caught it, not with chains, but with his bare hands. Flesh met enchanted metal, and the impact sent shock waves rippling across the courtyard. Ghost Rider's boots carved trenches through stone as he was driven backward, but he held firm. "Strength is not righteousness," Zarathos's voice emerged. "Power is not justice." "Power is the only justice," Shao Kahn roared, and his muscles bulged as he pressed the hammer down with overwhelming force. Ghost Rider's knees began to buckle. "The strong rule, the weak serve. This is the law of nature, demon. This is truth." Ghost Rider's skull blazed brighter, and when he spoke, Johnny Blaze's humanity merged perfectly with Zarathos's fury. "Then let me show you the truth about strength." The Penance Stare. Ghost Rider's burning eye sockets locked with Shao Kahn's glowing eyes, and the Emperor of Outworld felt something he hadn't experienced in millennia: vulnerability. Not pain. The Penance Stare wasn't physical. It was the weight of every sin, every atrocity, every conquered realm crying out for justice all at once. Shao Kahn saw them, felt them. Every world he'd merged with Outworld, every civilization ground to dust beneath his boot, every child orphaned, every family destroyed, every innocent life snuffed out in service to his endless appetite for conquest. Millions upon millions of souls, all screaming his name. The Emperor's eyes widened, his grip on the hammer loosened. For the first time in living memory, Shao Kahn faltered. But he did not fall. No. My crimes," the Emperor gasped, veins bulging in his neck as he fought against the spiritual assault. "I know. Every death, every conquest." Blood ran from his nose, his ears, and I would do it again. With a roar that shook reality itself, Shao Kahn rejected the Penance Stare. Not through immunity. The demon could feel the Emperor's suffering, could sense the weight of guilt crushing down on him. But through sheer, indomitable will, Shao Kahn acknowledged his crimes and simply didn't care. The warhammer broke free from Ghost Rider's grip and caught him across the skull, launching the demon through the air. He crashed through 2 pillars before slamming into the courtyard wall, stone cracking around the impact crater. "Impressive trick, demon," Shao Kahn panted, blood still dripping from his face, but his stance unwavering. "You made me feel their pain, their suffering, their deaths." He smiled through bloody teeth. "But I am Shao Kahn. I am conquest incarnate. Guilt is for the weak." Ghost Rider extracted himself from the wall, his flames flickering uncertainly. Johnny Blaze's voice emerged, shocked. How did he resist? No one resists the Penance Stare, not when they're guilty." "He did not resist." Zarathos's voice carried something rare: confusion. "He felt everything. He experienced all the pain. He simply chose not to care." Across the battlefield, the freed spirit of vengeance laughed, a terrible hollow sound. Do you see, brother? This is why judgment must be absolute. Some beings are beyond redemption, beyond guilt. They must simply be erased. The entity's chains lashed out toward Shao Kahn, seeking to drag the Emperor into oblivion itself. But Shao Kahn swung his hammer with perfect timing, shattering the mystical chains like glass. You want to judge me, spirits? Then judge this. The Emperor slammed his hammer into the ground, and the entire island shook. Magical energy erupted outward, the accumulated power of countless conquered realms, stored within Shao Kahn's very being, released in one devastating pulse. Combatants on both sides were thrown backward. Pillars collapsed. The arena pit itself cracked open, revealing ancient catacombs beneath. And in those depths, something stirred, the remnants of power left behind when the freed spirit had escaped its prison. You want to see true power? Shao Kahn bellowed. You want to understand what makes me Emperor of Outworld? He gestured broadly at the destruction. I do not hide behind rules. I do not pretend righteousness. I am conquest, pure and simple. And nothing, not demons, not gods, not cosmic law, will stop me from taking what I desire. Ghost Rider rose from the rubble, his leather jacket torn, his chains scorched, but still burning. The demon had fought gods, had judged ancient evils, had broken the minds of beings who thought themselves invincible. But Shao Kahn was something else entirely. He's right, you know. The voice came from Quan Chi, who had remained on the sidelines throughout the chaos, observing with calculating interest. The necromancer stepped forward, his pale face bearing a contemplative expression. The Emperor speaks truth, spirit of vengeance. Some beings are beyond your judgment because they have already judged themselves and found their actions acceptable. Quan Chi's red-marked features twisted into something almost pitying. You can show them their sins. You can make them feel the weight of guilt, but you cannot make them care. Then they must be destroyed. The freed spirit's flames blazed with renewed fury, and its chains lashed out, not at Shao Kahn now, but at everyone. Outworld invaders and Earthrealm defenders alike found themselves wrapped in judgment, dragged into private hells of consequence. No! Ghost Rider's chains shot out, intercepting his brother's attacks. That's not justice. That's just necessary. The freed spirit turned its full attention on Ghost Rider, and the two beings faced each other across a battlefield littered with the broken and the judged. You wanted to show me wisdom, brother? Well, here it is. Shao Kahn cannot be redeemed. The sorcerers cannot be redeemed. Most of these warriors cannot be redeemed. The entity's flames burned colder, more focused. So we end them. We erase them. We cleanse the realms. And who judges us? Johnny Blaze's voice emerged, strained but determined. If we start deciding who deserves to exist, who stops us when we go too far? Who says enough when vengeance becomes genocide? No one. The freed spirit said it simply, as if it were obvious. That is the point. We are judgment. We are the final word. Ghost Rider's flames flickered, blue mixing with orange, human wisdom tempering demonic rage. Then we're no different than Shao Kahn, just another tyrant enforcing our will on everyone else. The freed spirit paused, its flames flickering uncertainly. For the first time since escaping imprisonment, doubt crept into its consciousness. But we are right. We judge the guilty. Shao Kahn thinks he's right too, Ghost Rider replied quietly. He believes conquest is natural law. He's created an entire philosophy justifying his actions. In his mind, he's the hero bringing order to chaos. The demon's skull turned toward the Emperor, who watched the exchange with predatory interest. The difference between justice and tyranny isn't certainty, it's restraint. Philosophy, Shao Kahn spat. While you debate, my forces conquer. While you hesitate, Earthrealm burns. He gestured at the ongoing battle, where outworld warriors continued to pour through portals. This is why you will lose, demon, because you cannot commit. You cannot embrace what you are. He's not entirely wrong, Quan Chi added, his voice smooth as poison. Mercy is a luxury afforded to those who've already won. The spirit of vengeance was imprisoned precisely because it wouldn't compromise. The elder gods couldn't control absolute judgment, so they chained it. The necromancer's smile widened. Your brother learned that lesson. Perhaps you should too. Ghost Rider stood between two impossibilities. His freed brother, advocating for absolute judgment without restraint, and Shao Kahn representing the very tyranny that such judgment could become. On one side, vengeance without wisdom. On the other, power without conscience. Liu Kang was right, Johnny Blaze's voice emerged clearly. Sometimes, the strongest thing you can do is choose not to fight. Weakness. The freed spirit and Shao Kahn spoke simultaneously, united in their contempt for restraint. Control, Ghost Rider corrected. He looked at his brother, the freed spirit that burned with rage, earned through millennia of imprisonment. You suffered. I understand that. They used you, chained you, made you a tool. Your anger is justified. Then let me express it. But justified anger without direction is just chaos. Ghost Rider's chains retracted, wrapping around his own arms in a gesture of controlled power. You're not freeing the realms, you're just replacing one tyrant with another. The freed spirit's flames flickered, orange and red, mixing with hints of blue, the same color that had appeared in Ghost Rider's fire. What would you have me do? Forgive them? Forget millennia of slavery? No, Ghost Rider said firmly. Remember it. Carry it. But don't let it define you. Don't become the evil you were imprisoned to judge. Around them, the battle had slowed. Combatants on both sides had stopped fighting to watch two primordial forces debate the nature of justice itself. Even Shao Kahn seemed interested in the outcome, not because he cared about philosophy, but because the freed spirit's choice would determine whether he faced one enemy or two. The freed spirit's flames began to shift, from chaotic wildfire to something more controlled, more purposeful. The entity's massive form seemed to condense, becoming more defined, more focused. You suggest restraint. The voice was quieter now, less thunderous. After millennia of imprisonment, you suggest I hold back? I suggest you choose your targets, Ghost Rider replied. Judge the truly guilty, the ones like Shao Kahn, who know what they are and embrace it. But spare those who struggle, those who try, those who carry the weight of their choices and seek to be better. And if they fail, if they fall back into sin, then we judge them again, Johnny Blaze said simply. That's what makes justice different from vengeance. Justice allows for redemption. Vengeance only allows for destruction. The freed spirit turned its burning gaze on Shao Kahn, the emperor who had resisted the Penance Stare, who had looked into the face of his own atrocities, and laughed. Him? He is beyond redemption. Yes, Ghost Rider agreed. Him. Shao Kahn's expression shifted from interest to wariness. You think to unite against me? Two spirits of vengeance? Working together? He raised his warhammer defensively. It changes nothing. I have conquered gods. I have broken elder dragons. I will... Both spirits moved simultaneously. Ghost Rider's chains wrapped around Shao Kahn's legs, while the freed spirit's chain seized his arms. The Emperor roared, his muscles bulging as he fought against the combined assault. But even his legendary strength couldn't overcome two primordial forces working in perfect synchronization. Judgment! The word emerged from both spirits at once, and Shao Kahn was lifted into the air, suspended by chains of hellfire and concept. The Penance Stare fell upon him again, but this time it wasn't just Ghost Rider's focused judgment. It was the freed spirit's millennia of rage, combined with Ghost Rider's purposeful direction. Shao Kahn experienced everything. Not just his own crimes, but the collective suffering of everyone the freed spirit had been forced to judge during its imprisonment. Every tournament, death, every broken rule, every warrior who had fallen in service to cosmic law while true evil flourished. The Emperor screamed, truly screamed, for the first time in ages. His warhammer fell from nerveless fingers, clanging against stone. His eyes rolled back, blood poured from his nose, his ears, his mouth. The spiritual assault was too much, even for his indomitable will, even for Shao Kahn's absolute certainty in his own righteousness. Justice. The chains tightened, and "Stop!" Raiden's voice cracked across the battlefield, and the Thunder God appeared in a flash of lightning between the spirits and their prey. His hands were raised, crackling with divine energy, but his expression was desperate rather than threatening. "If you kill him now, you validate his invasion," Raiden said quickly. "Without the tournament's rules, his death outside of sanctioned combat gives Outworld legal justification for total war. The Elder Gods are silent." The freed spirit's voice carried bitter knowledge. They abandoned their authority when their foundation crumbled. There is no cosmic law here anymore. Only us. "Then be better than the law that imprisoned you." Liu Kang stepped forward, his dragon fire extinguished, his hands empty and open. "Be what the realms need, rather than what you were forced to be." The freed spirit hesitated. Ghost Rider felt his brother's consciousness wavering, rage warring with reason, vengeance struggling against wisdom. "What do the realms need?" "Justice," Liu Kang said simply. "Real justice. Not judgment, not vengeance. Not cosmic law that protects the guilty while pretending to serve the innocent." He gestured at Shao Kahn, still suspended and screaming. "Make him accountable. Make him face consequences. But don't just erase him. That's too easy." That's what he would do. Ghost Rider felt something shift in his brother, the same shift he'd experienced during his fight with Liu Kang. The realization that strength without restraint was just another form of tyranny. Slowly, reluctantly, the chains loosened. Shao Kahn collapsed to the ground, twitching, drool running from his mouth. His eyes stared at nothing, seeing horrors beyond comprehension. The Emperor who had conquered realms, who had broken gods, who had resisted every form of judgment, was broken, not dead, not erased, but fundamentally, irrevocably changed. Justice. The freed spirit's voice carried something new, satisfaction without cruelty, purpose without chaos. "This is better." Ghost Rider's flames blazed with approval. "This is wisdom." But their moment of triumph was short-lived, because while they'd been occupied with Shao Kahn, Quan Chi had been busy. The necromancer stood at the edge of the cracked arena pit, his hands wreathed in sickly green energy, drawing power from the depths where the freed spirit had been imprisoned. The residual mystical foundation, the chains and seals left behind, was being harvested, absorbed, weaponized. "Thank you for the distraction," Quan Chi said pleasantly. "While you were demonstrating your newfound restraint, I was collecting something far more valuable." His eyes glowed with necromantic power, the remnants of cosmic law, the broken chains that once bound judgment itself. His smile was terrible. Enough power to rival even the elder gods. And from the catacombs beneath, wrapped in stolen chains of judgment, rose Quan Chi's true goal. An army of revenants, each one wrapped in fragments of the spirit's former prison, each one twisted into instruments of the necromancer's will. Scorpion, Sub-Zero, Kung Lao, Kitana, Jade, Cabal, Striker, Smoke. Warriors who had died in previous timelines, whose souls Quan Chi had been collecting, now animated by stolen fragments of primordial judgment itself. Now, the necromancer revenants emerged from the pit how your justice handles this, made manifest. Their skin bore the gray pallor of death, their eyes glowed with necromantic fire, and wrapped around each of them were chains, not ordinary chains, but fragments of the very bonds that had imprisoned the spirit of vengeance for millennia. Chains of judgment itself, now twisted and corrupted into instruments of control. Liu Kang stared in horror at the revenant wearing Kung Lao's face. No, not again. We saved them from this fate. We prevented. You prevented nothing, Quan Chi interrupted smoothly. You simply delayed. These souls exist across multiple timelines, multiple realities. I've been collecting them for years, waiting for the perfect catalyst. He gestured at the freed spirit, and you provided it. The moment that spirit broke free, it left behind residual power. Fragments of cosmic authority, just enough to bind these warriors to my will. The revenant scorpion moved first, not the honorable Hanzo Hasashi, who had fought beside Ghost Rider moments ago, but a twisted version from another timeline. His flames burned black and green, corrupted by Quan Chi's magic and the stolen judgment chains. He launched his kunai toward the living scorpion with lethal precision. Get down! The living specter shoved Sub-Zero aside as the chain whistled past. That's not me. That's what I was. Before I broke free, before I learned. The revenant said nothing. It simply attacked again, moving with mechanical efficiency. No honor, no hesitation, just pure, corrupted purpose. Abomination! The freed spirit's voice thundered with rage. He has taken judgment, sacred, primal judgment, and twisted it into slavery. Ghost Rider's flames blazed white-hot, and both voices emerged in perfect fury. Quan Chi, what you've done is beyond any sin I've witnessed. You've taken the very concept of justice and made it a tool. How poetic, the necromancer replied, utterly unbothered. The spirit of vengeance, offended by my pragmatism. Tell me, demon, what's the difference between your judgment and my control? You force people to experience their sins. I force them to serve my will. Both are manipulation. Both are chains. The difference is choice. Ghost Rider's chains ignited. We show them truth and let them decide. You remove their ability to choose. Semantics, Quan Chi waved dismissively. Now, shall we test whose philosophy is stronger? My army of the damned, wrapped in stolen judgment? Or your restraint? The Revenant army attacked as one. Revenant Kitana's bladed fans whistled through the air toward Sonya. Revenant Cabal moved with superhuman speed, his hooked blades targeting Jax. Revenant Kung Lao's razor-edged hat spun toward Liu Kang, the living champion forced to face his dead best friend's corrupted corpse. Don't hold back, Raiden commanded, lightning blazing from his hands to intercept Revenant smoke. These are not your friends. These are echoes, shells, animated by dark magic. But even as he said it, the Thunder God hesitated. Because these were warriors he'd known, trained, fought beside. How could he strike them down, even corrupted versions of them? Ghost Rider had no such hesitation. His chains lashed out, wrapping around Revenant Striker and yanking the undead officer backward. they're already dead. What Quan Chi did to them, keeping them from rest, using them as puppets, that's the crime. The Penance Stare fell upon the Revenant, and for a moment, something flickered in those dead eyes. Not life, not consciousness, but a spark of the warrior who had once inhabited that body, screaming silently at the violation of being animated against his will. Release them. The freed spirit's chains shot out, not to bind the revenants, but to shatter the corrupted judgment fragments wrapped around them. Where the primordial chains struck, Quan Chi's stolen power cracked and splintered. Revenant Striker collapsed, the green fire in his eyes guttering. Whatever had been animating him, whatever twisted fragment of judgment Quan Chi had used, was gone. The body lay still, finally at peace. No! Quan Chi's composed expression cracked. Those chains are mine. I harvested them. You stole them. The freed spirit's voice carried the weight of millennia. And now, we take them back. Ghost Rider and his brother moved in synchronization, their chains weaving complex patterns as they struck at the Revenant army. Each impact shattered more of Quan Chi's stolen power, freeing the dead warriors from their torment. But there were so many, dozens of Revenants, each one wrapped in fragments of cosmic authority, each one a piece of the puzzle that had once bound the spirit itself. You cannot save them all, Quan Chi taunted, backing toward another portal. And even if you could, look around you, demon. Look at what your arrival has wrought. Ghost Rider did look, and what he saw made Johnny Blaze's heart sink. The island was in ruins. Bodies, Outworld and Earthrealm both, littered the courtyard. Goro's corpse lay cold and stiffening, his redemption purchased with death. Shao Kahn twitched mindlessly, broken by judgment. The tournament structure that had maintained peace between realms for millennia was shattered beyond repair. And in the chaos of battle, while Ghost Rider and the freed spirit had focused on Shao Kahn, and then the Revenants, Outworld's invasion had continued. Portals still poured forth warriors. The evacuation boats were under siege. Earthrealm defenders were being overwhelmed. This is what happens when cosmic law crumbles, Quan Chi said softly. This is what happens when spirits of vengeance run free. Not justice, not redemption, just chaos. Lies. But even as the freed spirit spoke, doubt crept into its voice. Because Quan Chi was partially right, the spirit's escape had triggered a cascade of consequences. The tournament's destruction, the invasion, the deaths. Is it lies? The necromancer gestured at the carnage. You sought to deliver justice, demon, and instead, you brought war. You sought to free your brother, and instead, you destroyed the only structure keeping the realms from tearing each other apart. His smile returned. Congratulations. You've become exactly what Shao Kahn is, a force of destruction pretending to righteousness. Ghost Rider felt Johnny Blaze recoil at the words, felt Zarathos rage against the accusation. But underneath it all, there was a terrible question. Was Quan Chi right? No. Liu Kang's voice cut through the doubt. The Shaolin champion stood bloodied, but unbowed. His dragon fire burning steady despite exhaustion. You're wrong, necromancer. The chaos isn't because of justice. It's because of injustice that was allowed to fester for too long. He pointed at Shao Kahn's twitching form. The Emperor was planning to invade regardless. The tournament was a sham, a delay tactic while he gathered power. You know this, Quan Chi. You've been part of his schemes for years. The necromancer's smile didn't waver. Perhaps. But the timing is unfortunate for your demon friend. Who will Earthrealm's people blame for this war? The Emperor they've feared for generations? Or the new arrival who shattered the only protection they had? It was a political move, Ghost Rider realized. Quan Chi was planting seeds of doubt not just in the spirit's mind, but in the minds of every survivor. Making the demon into a scapegoat, ensuring that even if Earthrealm survived, Ghost Rider would be remembered as a harbinger of destruction rather than a force for justice. Enough words. The freed spirit's patience finally shattered. You manipulate. You twist. You use even truth as a weapon. Its chains lashed out toward Quan Chi with devastating force. The necromancer dodged through a portal, and the chains struck empty air. His voice echoed from somewhere distant. I'll be watching, spirits. Watching as you try to fix what you've broken. Watching as the realms burn. And when you're at your lowest, when you're drowning in the consequences of your righteous judgment, I'll be there to offer you a deal. The portal snapped shut. Ghost Rider stood amid the ruins of the tournament, surrounded by the dead and dying, feeling the weight of every choice that had led to this moment. The freed spirit hovered nearby, its flames flickering with uncertainty. What have we done? Johnny Blaze's voice emerged, small and horrified. We delivered justice. But Zarathos's voice lacked its usual certainty. Did we? Blaze pressed. Or did we just break everything and call it righteousness? The freed spirit turned its burning gaze on Ghost Rider. Brother, tell me we did the right thing. Tell me this destruction was necessary. Before Ghost Rider could answer, a roar echoed across the island. Not a human roar. Not even a Tarkaton battle cry. Something else. Something ancient and terrible. From the largest portal, still open, still pouring forth outworld warriors, emerged a shadow that made even the hardened combatants step back in fear. Massive. Draconic. Covered in scales that seemed to absorb light itself. Onaga, the Dragon King, Outworld's ancient ruler, awakened by the chaos, drawn by the scent of cosmic power in flux. Oh, you've got to be kidding me, Johnny Cage muttered, his usual bravado completely gone. The Dragon King surveyed the battlefield with cold, reptilian intelligence. Then its gaze fixed on Ghost Rider and the freed spirit, the two sources of primordial power, the two beings whose presence had shattered the realm's careful balance. When Onaga spoke, its voice was like grinding consonants. Spirits of vengeance. You have disrupted the order of realms. You have broken cosmic law. You have released forces that should have remained chained. The Dragon King's maw opened, revealing rows of teeth and a glow building deep in its throat. For these crimes, I judge you. And Ghost Rider realized with terrible irony, they were about to be judged by the very chaos they'd unleashed. Onaga's dragon fire erupted from its maw, not ordinary flame, but the breath of an ancient king who had ruled Outworld before Shao Kahn, before the tournament, before the elder gods had imposed their precious order. The fire was primordial, older than most concepts, and it struck Ghost Rider and the freed spirit with the force of a collapsing star. Ghost Rider's chains wrapped defensively as he was driven backward, boots carving trenches through stone. The freed spirit took the blast head-on, its own primordial flames meeting Onaga's in a collision that lit the sky like a second sun. The Dragon King's fire was older, more raw, but the spirit's fire was purposeful, refined by millennia of judgment. You dare judge us, the freed spirit roared. We are vengeance incarnate. We existed before your kind crawled from the primordial chaos. Precisely, Onaga rumbled, its massive form advancing across the ruined courtyard. Each footstep cracked stone. Each breath carried the weight of ages. You predate order. You predate law. You are chaos given consciousness and called justice. The Dragon King's eyes, ancient, intelligent, merciless, fixed on both spirits. The elder gods were right to imprison one of you. They should have imprisoned both. Ghost Rider felt rage building, both his own and Zarathos's. The demon wanted to unleash everything, to show this arrogant dragon what true vengeance looked like. But Johnny Blaze's humanity held firm, forcing him to think rather than just react. "You're just another tyrant," Blaze's voice emerged. "Another ruler who wants to maintain power by keeping judgment chained." "No." Onaga's response was surprisingly measured. "I am a ruler who understands that absolute judgment destroys as surely as absolute tyranny. You spirits see only guilt and innocence, sin and redemption. But realms cannot function on such binary thinking." The Dragon King's tail swept across the battlefield, and several Outworld warriors went flying. "Even I, conqueror, tyrant, ancient evil, serve a purpose. I maintain order through strength. Without me, Outworld would tear itself apart. Tyranny is not order, and judgment without mercy is not justice," Onaga countered. "Yet here you stand, having broken the tournament, shattered cosmic law, and unleashed war between realms, all in the name of delivering vengeance upon those you deemed guilty." The dragon's laugh was bitter. "Tell me, spirits, how many innocents have died today because of your righteousness?" The question hung in the air like a blade. Ghost Rider looked across the battlefield, truly looked, and saw what Onaga meant. A young Earthrealm warrior, barely 20, lying dead with a Tarkatan blade in his chest. An Outworld soldier, probably conscripted against his will, crushed beneath fallen stone. Collateral damage. Consequences. They died because Shao Kahn invaded. The freed spirit's voice carried defensiveness now. Because Quan Chi manipulated, because the system was corrupt. "They died because you broke the dam," Onaga replied coldly. "Yes, the system was corrupt. Yes, Shao Kahn planned to invade eventually. But the tournament bought time, gave Earthrealm chances to prepare, forced even tyrants to follow some rules." The Dragon King's eyes blazed. "And you shattered it because you could not tolerate imperfect justice." Ghost Rider felt the words cut deep because they held truth. Not complete truth, but enough to hurt. "What would you have us do? Ignore evil because fighting it has consequences? Let the guilty flourish because judgment is messy?" "I would have you understand that you are not above consequences," Onaga said. "You judge others for their sins. Who judges you for yours? We are judgment. Then you are tyranny with a different name." The Dragon King's maw opened again, fire building. "And tyrants must be overthrown." The blast came faster this time, a concentrated beam of ancient fire that struck the freed spirit directly in its core. The entity screamed, not in pain, but in shock. Onaga's fire wasn't just burning, it was binding, creating new chains, forged from the same primordial energy that had imprisoned the spirit before. "No!" Ghost Rider's chains lashed out, wrapping around the Dragon King's throat and pulling with all his supernatural strength. "You will not imprison my brother again." Onaga's claws came up, seizing the chains. With horrifying ease, the dragon pulled, dragging Ghost Rider forward and slamming him into the ground with enough force to create a crater. "Your brother? That spirit is not your kin. It is what you fear becoming. Judgment without restraint. Vengeance without wisdom." The Dragon King pressed one massive claw against Ghost Rider's chest, pinning him. "You are different, demon. I sense the human within you, tempering the spirit's rage. You question. You doubt. You choose." Onaga's eyes narrowed. "But your brother has no such anchor. It burns with pure, undiluted judgment, and that makes it too dangerous to exist free." Ghost Rider struggled beneath the claw, but Onaga's strength was immense, The demon could feel his ribs cracking, his supernatural durability tested to its limits. "You're wrong. My brother can learn, can grow, can destroy everything while learning," Onaga finished. "How many must die while it figures out restraint? How many realms must burn while it discovers wisdom?" The dragon's voice actually carried something like regret. "I take no pleasure in this, spirit, but some forces are too dangerous to roam free." The freed spirit, still wrapped in Onaga's binding flames, thrashed desperately. "Brother, help me! Do not let them chain me again!" Ghost Rider looked up at his brother, at the massive entity that had been imprisoned for millennia, that had finally tasted freedom, that was now being dragged back into bondage. Every instinct screamed to help, to fight, to deliver judgment upon Onaga for this violation. But Johnny Blaze's humanity forced him to see clearly. Was the freed spirit right? Or was Onaga? The entity had shown him what he could become without restraint. It had judged indiscriminately, hurt innocence in its rage, nearly destroyed everything in pursuit of absolute vengeance. It was dangerous. It was chaos. But it was also right about so many things. Right about Shao Kahn's evil, right about the tournament's corruption, right about cosmic law protecting the guilty while restricting judgment. "Brother, please." The freed spirit's plea cut through Ghost Rider's thoughts. And in that moment, Johnny Blaze made a choice that would define everything. Let him go. Zarathos roared in protest within their shared consciousness, but Blaze held firm. "Onaga, I'll make you a deal." The Dragon King's pressure eased slightly. "What deal could you possibly offer?" "Take me instead." Ghost Rider's skull blazed with determination. "Imprison me alongside my brother, bind us both, but make it a choice, not slavery." He met Onaga's ancient gaze. "Let us serve as the tournament's foundation willingly. Let us be the judgment that enforces cosmic law, but with wisdom, with restraint, with purpose." "No!" The freed spirit's voice carried horror. "Brother, you do not know what you offer. Millennia of isolation, endless judgment of others while being unable to act." "I know," Ghost Rider said quietly. "But I also know that we caused this. We broke the system, and people are dying because of it. We have to fix it." Onaga studied him for a long moment. Then, surprisingly, the dragon laughed. "You would imprison yourself? Sacrifice your freedom to repair what you destroyed?" The Dragon King actually sounded impressed. "That is not the action of a tyrant, spirit. That is the action of someone who understands responsibility." The dragon's claw lifted from Ghost Rider's chest. "But I have a counteroffer." Onaga turned toward the assembled combatants, Earthrealm defenders and Outworld invaders alike, all watching this impossible negotiation. "The tournament is broken. Cosmic law is shattered. The realms stand at the brink of total war." The dragon's voice carried across the island. "But perhaps that system needed to break." Raiden materialized in a flash of lightning. "What are you proposing, Dragon King?" "A new order," Onaga replied. "Not built on imprisoned spirits or elder god edicts, but on choice." The dragon gestured at Ghost Rider. "This demon understands something the old system did not. That judgment must be balanced with mercy. That vengeance must be tempered with wisdom. That even the guilty deserve the chance to be better." The Dragon King's flames began to fade from around the freed spirit, releasing it. "I propose that these two spirits become not the tournament's foundation, but its conscience. Not bound, but bound by purpose. They will judge combatants not just for breaking rules, but for their intentions, their growth, their choices." Liu Kang stepped forward, hope flickering in his eyes. You mean, a tournament based on honor rather than just victory? Where even the defeated can prove their worth through how they fight. Precisely. Onaga's ancient eyes gleamed. The old system rewarded only strength. The new system would reward strength and character. It would give even villains the chance to prove they can grow. And the spirits of vengeance would ensure that growth is genuine, not just deception. And if they refuse to grow? The freed spirit asked, wary but intrigued. If they embrace evil willingly, like Shao Kahn, then judgment falls, Onaga said simply. But earned judgment, based on choices made, not just sins committed. The Dragon King looked at Ghost Rider. What say you, demon? Will you and your brother accept this purpose? To be guardians not of law, but of potential. Ghost Rider felt Zarathos and Johnny Blaze finally, truly in agreement. This was what they'd been searching for since arriving in this realm. Not just the power to judge, but the right way to judge. We accept, both voices emerged unified. But on one condition. Name it. Shao Kahn. Ghost Rider pointed at the Emperor's twitching form. He stays broken. He stays removed from power. He serves as a warning of what happens when someone chooses absolute evil and refuses all redemption. Onaga considered, then nodded slowly. Agreed. The Emperor will live, as an example, conscious enough to understand what he's lost. Broken enough to never threaten the realms again. The freed spirit's flames began to change, from chaotic orange and red to focused blue and white, mirroring Ghost Rider's transformation. And Quan Chi, he escaped with stolen power. That, Onaga rumbled, is a problem for another day. For now, we must stop this war. The Dragon King turned toward the Outworld forces, still pouring through portals. Warriors of Outworld, the command carried absolute authority. Your Emperor is fallen. Your invasion is ended. Return to your realm, or face the combined judgment of the spirits and the Dragon King himself. The Outworld warriors hesitated. Without Shao Kahn's overwhelming presence, without clear leadership, they were just soldiers following orders. Slowly, reluctantly, they began to retreat through the portals. Ghost Rider and the freed spirit moved among them, not attacking, but watching, judging not with the Penance Stare, but with something more subtle. Seeing which warriors retreated with relief, glad to escape meaningless slaughter, and which warriors retreated with rage, already planning future attacks. Those latter warriors felt chains wrap around them, not to kill, but to mark. They would be remembered, judged again if they returned. Is this justice? Liu Kang asked quietly, standing beside Ghost Rider as the evacuation continued. It's a start, Johnny Blaze's voice replied. Real justice isn't a single moment. It's an ongoing process, giving people chances to grow, holding them accountable when they refuse. The Shaolin champion smiled slightly. You sound like a teacher. Maybe that's what judgment should be, Ghost Rider mused. Not just punishment, but teaching. Showing people what they could be, then letting them choose. As the last Outworld warriors retreated and the portals began to close, Ghost Rider looked at his brother. The freed spirit hovered nearby, its flames calm now, controlled, still immensely powerful, but no longer wild. We have purpose now. The entity's voice carried something new. Contentment. Not slavery, not chaos, but meaning. Yeah, Ghost Rider agreed. Meaning. Onaga spread his massive wings, preparing to depart. I will inform the other realms of this new arrangement. The tournament will be rebuilt, but different. Better. The Dragon King's ancient eyes met Ghost Rider's burning sockets. You disrupted everything, demon. But perhaps disruption was necessary. Will the Elder Gods accept this? Raiden asked. concern evident in his voice. "The Elder Gods are silent," Onaga replied. "Their old system failed. If they wish to challenge this new order—" The dragon's smile was sharp. "They can try." With a beat of massive wings, the Dragon King took flight, disappearing into the blood-red sky. Ghost Rider stood amid the ruins of Shang Tsung's island, surrounded by exhausted warriors, broken architecture, and the bodies of those who hadn't survived the chaos. The tournament was destroyed. Cosmic law was shattered. Everything had changed, but maybe, just maybe, it had changed for the better. The freed spirit descended to stand beside its brother. "What now?" Ghost Rider looked at the horizon, where new challenges awaited. Quan Chi was still out there with stolen power. Other realms would test this new order. And somewhere, the Elder Gods watched silently, waiting to see if this experiment in judgment through choice would succeed or fail. "Now," Johnny Blaze said, his voice carrying hard-won wisdom, "we learn how to be what the realms need. Not just judges, not just executioners, but guides, showing people what they could be, then holding them accountable for what they choose." The two spirits stood together, different in form, but united in purpose, as the sun set on the old order and rose on something new. The days following the battle were marked by actually be just. Shang Tsung's island, once the site of countless tournaments, now served as neutral ground where representatives from multiple realms gathered to witness the unprecedented. Two spirits of vengeance standing as guardians of a new order. Ghost Rider stood at the edge of the reconstructed arena, smaller now, more intimate, but built on principles of honor rather than just survival. The freed spirit hovered nearby, its flames steady and controlled, no longer the wild conflagration that had threatened to consume everything. "They fear us," the freed spirit observed, watching as Earthrealm's representatives maintained careful distance. "Even those we saved. They look at us and see destruction." "They see what we could be," Ghost Rider corrected, "and they're right to be cautious. We broke their world. Even if it needed breaking, that doesn't erase the fear." Johnny Blaze's voice carried understanding. "Trust is earned through actions, not just words." Liu Kang approached, moving with the easy confidence of someone who had faced the spirits in combat and earned their respect. The Shaolin champion carried himself differently now, still honorable, still disciplined, but with a harder edge born from witnessing how close the realms had come to total war. "The new tournament structure is nearly complete," Liu Kang reported. "Raiden has been in contact with representatives from Order Realm, Chaos Realm, even some of the more neutral Outworld factions. Most are willing to participate under the new rules." "And those who aren't?" Ghost Rider asked. "Will be dealt with when they inevitably try to disrupt things." Liu Kang's expression was grim. Onaga was right. Not everyone wants a system based on growth and redemption. Some prefer the old ways, where might made right. Those ones will face judgment. The freed spirit's flames flickered with anticipation. "Fair judgment," Ghost Rider emphasized, and his brother's flames settled. The dynamic between them had become almost brotherly. One restraining, one pushing, both learning from each other. "We show them the consequences of their choices. We give them chances to change. But if they refuse, then chains," Liu Kang finished, understanding. "I've been thinking about what you said, about justice being a process rather than a moment." He gestured at the rebuilt arena. "The new tournament reflects that. Combatants aren't just fighting for their realms anymore. They're proving their character, showing they can fight with honor even when losing, demonstrating growth even in defeat." Scorpion materialized from shadows, his presence no longer announced by rage, but by controlled purpose. The specter had been changed by witnessing Ghost Rider's struggle with restraint. by seeing what unchecked vengeance could become. The Lin Kuei and Shirai Ryu have agreed to participate, Scorpion reported, his voice carrying less of the Graves' rasp than before. Sub-Zero and I will fight not as enemies, but as rivals, demonstrating that even ancient hatred can be. He paused, searching for the word. Transformed. Ghost Rider's skull tilted toward the specter. You've come far from the warrior who wanted to judge me for existing. I saw myself in your brother, Scorpion admitted quietly. Saw what I would have become if I'd never broken free from Quan Chi's control. If I'd never learned that vengeance without purpose is just... He gestured at the still visible scars across the island. Destruction. You have earned respect, Spectre. The freed spirit's voice carried genuine approval. Few warriors recognize their own darkness and choose to face it. Speaking of darkness, Raiden's voice preceded his arrival in a flash of lightning. The Thunder God looked older somehow, more weary, as if the weight of recent events had aged him beyond his immortal years. I've received disturbing reports from across the realms. Quan Chi's activities have increased. Whatever power he harvested from your prison, he nodded at the freed spirit. He's using it to create more revenants, building an army. Ghost Rider's chains coiled instinctively. Where? That's the problem. He's operating across multiple realms simultaneously. Netherrealm, obviously, but also pockets in Outworld, hidden sanctums in Chaos Realm. Raiden's expression was troubled. It's as if he's preparing for something large, something that will require an army strong enough to challenge the New Order, Liu Kang finished. He wants to prove that the old system, corrupt as it was better than what we're building. Then we hunt him. The freed spirit's flames blazed with purpose. Track him across the realms and deliver judgment. No. Ghost Rider's voice carried the authority of hard-won wisdom. That's what he wants. For us to leave this new tournament vulnerable while we chase shadows. Quan Chi is patient. He'll wait for us to make mistakes, to overextend, to become what he accused us of being. Chaos pretending to righteousness. So what do you suggest? Raiden asked. We build something he can't tear down. Ghost Rider gestured at the arena, at the assembled representatives, at the fragile new order taking shape. We make this work. We prove that judgment with mercy, vengeance with wisdom, actually functions. And when Quan Chi makes his move, and he will, we'll be ready. Sonya Blade approached, accompanied by Jax and several other Special Forces operatives. The military contingent had been skeptical of the spirits at first, seeing only the destruction they'd caused. But they'd also witnessed Ghost Rider and the freed spirit protecting evacuation boats, sparing soldiers who'd surrendered, showing restraint when slaughter would have been easier. The U.S. government wants assurances, Sonya said bluntly. They need to know that you two aren't going to suddenly decide that all of Earthrealm deserves judgment. We judge actions, not realms. The freed spirit's voice was measured. Your government has committed sins, as all governments do. But so long as they strive to be better, so long as they hold themselves accountable, we'll watch, Ghost Rider finished. Not interfere, not conquer. Just watch. And only act when evil becomes undeniable. And who decides what's undeniable? Jax challenged. We do, Johnny Blaze's human voice admitted. Which is why we accept oversight. Why we've agreed to work within this new tournament structure rather than operating alone. Because absolute power, even in service of justice, is still tyranny. Sonya studied him for a long moment, then nodded slowly. Fair enough. Just try not to break reality again, yeah? Ghost Rider's skull somehow conveyed a wry smile. No promises. As the sun set over the island, casting long shadows across the rebuilt arena. Ghost Rider and the freed spirit stood together, watching combatants from multiple realms prepare for the first matches under the new system. Tarkatans fighting with unexpected restraint, Earthrealm warriors demonstrating honor even in victory. Even a few reformed Outworld soldiers, seeking to prove they could be more than instruments of conquest. "Do you think this will work?" the freed spirit asked quietly. "This experiment in redemptive justice? I don't know," Ghost Rider admitted, "but I know the alternative. The old system that imprisoned you, that protected tyrants, that made might the only measure of right, definitely didn't work. And if we fail, if this new order collapses, then we try something else." Johnny Blaze's voice carried determination. "That's what makes us different from the old cosmic law. We can adapt, we can learn, we can change." The freed spirit's flames shifted to that calm blue-white that indicated understanding. "We have become something new, brother. Not just spirits of vengeance, but spirits of justice," Ghost Rider supplied. "Maybe that's what we were always meant to be." Across the island, in shadows that even the spirit's flames couldn't quite penetrate, a figure watched with calculating interest. Quan Chi observed the new order taking shape, noted the spirit's vulnerabilities, cataloged every weakness in this fragile alliance. The necromancer smiled. Let them build their new world. Let them believe in redemption and growth and second chances. He would be patient. He would gather power. And when the time was right, when they'd grown comfortable in their righteousness, he would show them that some evil couldn't be redeemed, only embraced. But that was a problem for another day. For now, Ghost Rider and the freed spirit stood guard over a realm trying desperately to be better than its past. They would face challenges, Quan Chi's machinations, the Elder God's eventual response, other realms testing the new tournament's limits. Yet as the first combatants entered the arena under the watching flames of two spirits, who judged not just strength, but character, there was something in the air that hadn't existed before. Hope. And perhaps that was the most dangerous thing the spirits of vengeance could offer. The belief that even in a universe defined by Mortal Kombat, there was still room for mercy. Still room for growth. Still room for justice. The tournament had been reborn. The realm stood at a crossroads. And Ghost Rider had learned what true judgment meant. Not the power to destroy, but the wisdom to show people what they could become, then hold them accountable for what they chose. Somewhere in the multiverse, other threats stirred. Other challenges awaited. But for this moment, in this realm, two brothers stood united in purpose, no longer just forces of vengeance, but guardians of something worth protecting. The future was uncertain. The path ahead would be brutal, but they would face it together. Ghost Rider's arrival in the Mortal Kombat realms had shattered the old order. But from those ruins, something new had emerged. The tournament no longer served as merely a battleground for realm supremacy, but as a proving ground for character itself. Warriors fought not just for victory, but to demonstrate honor, growth, and the capacity for redemption. The freed spirit, once consumed by millennia of rage, had found purpose beyond blind vengeance. Alongside Ghost Rider, it served as both judge and guardian, not imprisoning sin but illuminating it, offering chances for transformation while delivering judgment upon those who refused all redemption. Shao Kahn remained broken, a living warning of what absolute evil earned. Quan Chi lurked in shadows with stolen power, planning moves that would test the spirit's resolve. The Elder Gods watched silently from their cosmic thrones, waiting to see if this mortal experiment in justice through choice would succeed or collapse into chaos. And Ghost Rider, Johnny Blaze and Zarathos, human and demon, united in purpose, had discovered that true justice wasn't about perfect judgment. It was about giving even the guilty a chance to choose better, then holding them accountable when they didn't. The realms would test this new order. Villains would challenge it. Heroes would question it. But the spirits of vengeance, now spirits of justice, stood ready to prove that mercy and judgment could coexist, that strength and honor weren't opposites, and that even in a universe defined by Mortal Kombat, there was still room for hope. The tournament had only just begun. The real test of character, for warriors and spirits alike, awaited in battles yet to come. Finish him. More realms.